Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Crisis Currency Roundtable. My name is Larvetta Lofton, and I am the founder of the L3 Agency. And I am excited about today's podcast and what we're talking about. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go to youtube.com, subscribe to Larvetta L. Lofton. If you want to see other episodes, feel free to go to our website here and you can find. So just to give you guys a little recap of what we've done. So we started this at the beginning of the pandemic in April of last year. We did it intentionally because we wanted to ensure that Black businesses, Black leaders were being able to be shown as they pivot through this crisis, and bringing on thought leaders to discuss how we're pivoting, how we're, taking our business to another level, and how we may be suffering. And so we've had we've talked about Black men's health. We've talked about Black music culture. We talked about sustainability. We've talked about adapting to the new normal. Last week, we talked about why Black businesses matter. And so because it has been Black History Month, we wanted to ensure that we were putting out things that are relevant as it relates to Black history. So today we're talking about why Black content matters. And so we brought some thought leaders to the table because this is a roundtable discussion. So we're very interactive. So we want you to ask questions and provide comments because that's what we want. These are individuals that, are truly my friends, my advocates, my supporters, and my sister. And so I haven't been able to do this in a while, that I have I've had some dope folks come through here on the table, but today is really, really special because I have one of my dearest, dearest, dearest girlfriends. And I have a thought leader who's been a peer of mine, who walked with me in this 20 years out of Chicago. We have been on this journey for 20 years and we've always been support each other anywhere that we can. And then I have an amazing content creator, photographer, visual artist. She is just amazing how we were able to meet each other. So I'm excited. So I'm going to introduce them and bring them to the table. We have one guest that's a little, time difference can be that, but I think she's here in the building. So I get to introduce her shortly. So I'm going to bring up my boy, Carl, to the round table. Carl, hello.
What's up? Peace. I'm here.
Hello. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to be at the table with you. A lot of times we're moving and shaking, but we now get to come together and talk and really share about why Black content matters. So let me bring up Yolanda to the round table. Yolanda Richards, who is her, and she is the CEO of Imagery by Chioma. Is that how we say that?
Chioma. Yeah, it's Chioma.
Oh, Chioma. Because I've been meaning to ask you that. And what does that mean?
So it's actually an Igbo name. My parents are Nigerian. A lot of people don't know this, but Chi means God, and then the rest of the Oma means good, so great God. And I think the reason why it was important for me to name that is because Chi not only means God, but energy and light and like a force. And so I really think it's important for my photography to speak to that, as far as how you're able to make impact through the positive energy, through the light and the force that you're able to bring towards people when you're taking their shot. That's kind of why the background is there. It doesn't help. Chicago went to some degree, so shy. People
that's what I thought. I was like,
that was the original goal, but I think I said I'm just gonna own Chioma and just make it happen. So that's kind of
pretty. I love that. That's pretty. So
thank you.
Thank you. So I need to bring up my sister. I love her to death. Miss Renee Blewett to the table. Hold on, let me get her up. Hold tight. We are hold tight. Hello, my Renee.
Hey, Larvetta. How are you?
Darling, it's so nice to. Okay, so I've given everybody a little bit of a backstory. I said I got my sister here, literally, to the round table. I get to have this because I got my sister. I got Carl, who's been with me for 20 years on this journey in Chicago, and then I've got Yolanda. So I said this is gonna be a special show. And then when I was like, where's my sister though? But where's my sister? But of course she can roll in. She knows how to roll in to be ready.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
That is what we do. So if you don't know, so this one right here, we've known each other. We've been in this business for, man, I don't know, Renee, what is it, 25, right?
It's definitely been over 20 years.
This one right here, she does it so well in her PR way. We don't have to say, do we have to?
We were 5 when we started.
Exactly. So that's the beauty of it, guys. So welcome, Renee, to the show, and we're just gonna talk about why content matters. I want to go around the room before we start, because what I do think that you guys are pushing out content and dealing with the pandemic, but I do want to ask you, what has been your biggest takeaway during this pandemic and really adjusting to this new normal? What has been like your biggest takeaway from it? Because I think some people have found joy in it, right? Or find a joy in it. So anybody wants to just share what has been their biggest takeaway?
I'm going to say one word, and that's creativity and innovation, with 2 words, creativity and innovation.
Okay.
It has provided us an opportunity to really look at how to be creative and innovative and how we, 1, move around, how we, 2, sit down and figure things out, and 3, with any crisis, there's always an opportunity to deliver solutions, not to the crisis itself, but to the things that it has affected.
Yeah.
And so, that to me has been invaluable. And I tell anybody I come in contact with that if you're serious about what you do, what you attempt to do in your journey through entrepreneurship, for instance, I think if you have not found a way to pivot positively through this and figure out how to make it work for you, and then you probably need to figure something else out to do. Excuse me. Because moments like this is when the best of you should rise to the top. And so, everybody is cool when the sun is shining and everybody is happy. Business is looking like it's going well. But you are measured by not the tragedy, but how you figure out the solution to that tragedy, so you can come out on the other side, not unscathed, but yet renewed and possibly even repaired, so that you can, just continue on your journey and make it bigger and better.
I love it, Carl. Yolanda, Renee, take a stab at that. Biggest takeaway.
My biggest takeaway has been, there's been a couple. One is the control that we thought we had in our lives just really didn't exist. And Larvetta, I like to be busy. We like to be busy. We always like things to be moving and popping. And through this time, I've learned that it is okay to be in a season where there may not be a harvest. And you could use that time to recalibrate, to strategize, to, as Carl mentioned, think about new ways to be innovative and creative. I am more than what I produce. I think that for all the years that I've been working, I've always been producing something, whether it's working in an agency and producing events and experiences for clients, or, producing a film, just producing. And I didn't realize that I was exhausted and I was kind of running on autopilot. So I've been able to redefine who Renee is outside of what she produces. And that has been a beautiful thing. And it has really fueled me to create more, if that makes sense, but not in the way that I did it before. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing how we all create in this space where hopefully we're pouring into ourselves more, getting more rest if we can, things that we didn't make time for.
Yeah, well said, Renee. Yolanda, your biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I think just everything I heard, I want to echo and support, but I think just to add on to that, for me personally, I think the intentionality was important. And that goes back to how you're able to connect that to creativity, innovation, and being able to rest. I think for myself, I like being busy. So go was kind of my middle name as far as what I was doing with photography. But I think with the pandemic, I had to be still. I had to kind of slow down and say, okay, things are shifting in a way maybe I'm not comfortable about, but it caused me to be still and be very clear and intentional about how I want to proceed and move forward and be adaptive and be willing to make those changes, which caused me to be more innovative. I think being still caused a lot of creativity for me, because when I'm not still, it's a different type of creativity. I think there's benefit to being able to have so much going on, but I think just being still caused me to think differently and strategically and actually, heal and rest my body, because I was just on go. And I think the pandemic in many ways made me to kind of be still. So I think intentionality, but also just the ability to be able to be adaptive, because I think the pandemic has caused a lot of shifts. And I think, Larvetta, you mentioned it. For some people, they loved it. Other people, they're like, this is a hot mess. I can't do this. And so you have to know how to adapt to these seasonal changes. And, obviously a pandemic just threw everyone for a curve. But I think just in general, you may deal with the season that's going in a direction that you didn't anticipate, but how do you adapt? How are you able to kind of adapt in those situations and be impactful and not let it make you negative, or kind of your outcome is going to be negative, but how can you learn from that and shift in a way? And that shows how you can persevere. So that's kind of what I learned during this time.
And I thank you guys for just really being very vulnerable about it, because I think we have heard, entrepreneurs, like, you got to keep it moving, girl. You got to keep it moving. You got, and so really understanding that we all do reset. Like we do, like we are. And I think that's the idea of being a business leader too. It's like you're also leading some business, and that's the transition from doing and really leading, right? And being able to do that. So today we're talking about Black content and why it matters. And it's an important subject because we're seeing it everywhere, right? We're seeing it in our commercials. We're seeing it everywhere. But what I felt that this conversation at the table was, I wanted to talk to the content creators. I see what the advertisers are doing, but let's talk to the content creators and really talk about it in a way that is authentic. So I'm going to just quickly pivot, and I'm going to start with Yolanda. I'm going to start with you to talk about why Black content matters and why, why is this conversation necessary today?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for putting me on the spot. I love it. Gotta be the first one. Gotta figure this out. I was thinking about this, and I know it sounds very standard, but I think it's important for us to own our narrative. I think so many people have tried to tell our story, and it's terrible. It's whack. I can't even say it in any other way. I see it even within photography. I feel that there's authenticity when you see us telling our own narrative in terms of the content that we present. I think it's powerful. I think it's actually natural. I think it shows an ability for us to not only own the narrative, but then show that we do it well. And, even with photography, you're seeing a very interesting shift, whether it's Essence Magazine and you see a lot of celebrities who are actually picking photographers who are Black. That's important, right? And I think it's important because of the fact that some Black photographers actually know lighting in a way that's going to complement Black features, right? Or Black skin tones. For a very long time, the history of photography, there are a lot of people, majority culture, a lot of white folks who would be in these spaces and didn't know how to actually photograph Black people well at all. And so it's not surprising that you're seeing a lot of these different entertainers, and they're like, no, we'd rather have someone who can at least understand these attributes, again, that owning the content and making sure that we shine an element. And I think Amber Marie Green, she's another fellow photographer. She's a mentor of mine, but she's always talking about the importance of us owning the narrative because it's more authentic. It's visually captivating because we are very creative people. I think what bothers me and makes me happy but bothered at the same time is how our creativity shines across all spectrums, and people are using that in a way and they steal it where they don't even give us the credit for it. And so my thing is, can we just get the credit and capitalize on that in a way that benefits us as communities? People are benefiting from our content, and I don't think that's right. So I think it helps us in terms of economic advancement, in terms of authenticity, but just being able to say, we know how to do this. We've known how to do this. And I think we just have to own that and it authentic. I think authenticity is what really sticks out for me.
And
So.
I'm glad that you said own. We were in a situation with a corporate client, and we were shooting or planning to shoot in August. And they have this. Well, we have our list of directors, and I said, okay. I said, but here's the thing: you want us to shoot Black people, we need to have Black directors. And this isn't anything personal. We can have them as editors. And they could not understand it. Like, they were like, but it's, I said, and I had this, it's funny you say this. I said, but lighting a Black person is different from lighting. And it was so
very different.
I can tell you this. It was quiet on the phone, like on the virtual. They were like, because they didn't have anything to say after that. So it's like weird. I was like, just shooting are just different. Like, it just is. So to advance that conversation, guess what? We have the ability to do that. So but I do think we have to have the courage to stand up and fight for it, right?
Yes.
I'm not the photographer, I'm not the director, but can I advocate for a photographer to come here and shoot that, to be able to do that? And that's important. So I love that you said own, because that's important. So I'm going to slide over to Renee and ask this question, because you over here, with your wonderful She Did That film, why does Black content matter today? And so I know that is one of your greatest achievements. So many more achievements ahead of you and behind you too. But why today does Black content matter?
I think it's really important. It's always been important, but really important today, because if you think about like what's happening in the world with police brutality and, the racial tension, you can't have empathy or try to connect with something you don't know or understand. And so I think that it's a beautiful opportunity for us to, like Yolanda said, own our narratives, but tell our stories in a way where the world could see us beyond what mass media wants to share. And for me, I'm specifically committed to telling the story of Black women and Black women entrepreneurs specifically, because if you look at television, that's not how they're depicting us. It's a different side of us. We have multiple sides to us as people, as women, but I think more people need to understand the impact that Black women are making, not only on the economy in the US, but like globally, and what we're creating and the businesses we're building and the legacies we're building. And people just don't realize, I don't think that Black women get the respect they need in that space. And so from the blog to the film, I have been really excited to share our stories in that way, beyond what you see on social media, because as we know, social media is like the highlight reel. Everyone is sharing their wins, but there's so much more that goes into building brands and building legacies. And it's my job to let people know how that works, specifically for Black women, because we have unique obstacles that we deal with as Black women in business, but then also unique opportunities just because of our creativity, our innovation, the love that we pour into everything we do. So our stories are powerful, and we can't, like, if you look at history books right now, or what children are learning virtually about history, you would think the same 5 people like no one since Martin Luther King has done anything to move our culture forward. So even us sharing our stories in that way is just a reminder of that we're still here. We're still doing great work. I know that you guys stopped in the 70s, but it's still here in 2021. And if you're not going to talk about it, we will, because I would hate for, children to come up 20 years from now and be like, so Black people weren't doing anything after the 70s? Like, it's so ridiculous.
That's good, Renee. And Carl, I'm certainly going to go to you around this, because, you did share with me, where content matters just in real time today that you experience, and understanding that you're right. It's like in real time, you've got great leaders today, right?
Yeah.
And so it's amazing to me that we love MLK, right? But there's another, which is why I'm going to say with Carl, right? When I think about his inspiration of Mr. Johnson and Robert Johnson, okay, we've had it, so now it's Mr. West, right? So why can't we kind of advance beyond that so that we can continue to tell our stories? Like, yep, Mr. Johnson opened that door. Okay, yep, we got it. Okay, but now there's Mr. West, right? And so why can't we continue? It's a weird thing, but I've said this before. It's always the same 10 people, and I'm sick of that. But that's that round table in Chicago, though. I don't know, Renee, that may not be for New York, but for Chicago, that's it. So, Carl, I want to slide over to you, so that you can share with us why Black content matters.
Well, it matters because, especially for us, because we've tried to control our own narrative through all the past successes of Black media. We mentioned Essence, Black Enterprise, BET, and there's a host of others who've done incredible jobs of kind of presenting our narrative in terms of who we are versus what mainstream media has presented. And it's interesting that this leads me to think about, I was actually on a Zoom call with someone who I find to be present day magnificent, and that is Byron Allen. I think what he is, done and is attempting to do to control every aspect of the narrative of Black culture, as well as building wealth in the process, which is very, very important for us all. We never want to lose factors that we are all in business to make money as much as possible and to serve and present ourselves in the best way possible. So we can walk and chew gum at the same time and also make a significant difference and leave a legacy. So what I have presented to them, it was a number of Black media organizations that was on this call, and we talked about, it was called Black Media Matters. Interesting. And I said to them, and I've been thinking about this for years, and I've actually written about this a number of times and had some traction on it, but never really followed through on the implementation of it. Somebody gonna always take the lead on pushing initiatives, and I just never did because I'm, just in the process of building my own. Just never did it. But I said, look, we have to use Black media to change the narrative of how we see each other. It's not necessarily about delivering our image to mainstream America. Who cares? We have to have conversations and presentations to each other because there are segments of our community that has bought into the narrative of what mainstream media has been giving them for decades. And so when they see us, even us, they only see what they've been trained or brainwashed through propaganda to believe. And so we can't even make an impact because they only see us as niggas off the street, regardless of our accomplishments and what we've all achieved. And so I'm like, we have to create a narrative where Black people acknowledge that we are gifted, we are talented, we are smart, we are innovative, and Lord knows nobody can ever use the phrase of us being lazy. See, that's a narrative that has been perpetrated for decades, to the fact that we've even bought into some of the propaganda. Yeah. And so I'm like, look, mainstream media we need to come together. You know how everybody comes together to do a PSA for maybe something like Alzheimer's or cancer or AIDS? I said we should come together to do a PSA with all Black media delivering. Let's re-script. Let's rebrand is the word. We use the word brand. Let's rebrand what Black is. Let's rebrand what Black and beautiful and smart and innovative is. Again, not to mainstream, but to us. Yeah. So we see each other at every level, no matter where we at in the world, we're going to honor and respect each other because we believe the narrative, the corrected narrative that has been pushed on us. And I really believe that if we did that, it will send signals around that it will also make mainstream media have to get away from the 10 o'clock news of the brothers in handcuffs and all the other little things that they try to, because they do it subliminally. Like, let me go, there's one last point on that. I talked about the crime stats, right? About 5 years ago in Chicago, the news media used to give us these crime stats on Sunday evening. How many people was shot and how many dead. And it rolled over into Monday. And I used to question media like my white peers, like, you mean tell me no white person got killed or shot or maimed or hurt over the weekend? Are y'all kidding me? And I realized it was all propaganda. We were the new cheap reality show.
Yeah.
They could show that, and it created conversation amongst us about how treacherous and dangerous we were, because they had these crime stats to show it, that they assembled falsely and they presented it to us, to where it got picked up over and over and over again. So I said, mainstream black media, not calling us mainstream, we mainstream black media. Yeah. We have to create this brand new narrative, brand new what black is. It has to be a collective effort. If we took up that mantle and did that, content will be king, and it will be the king of showing us who we really are to each other. I don't care about what the world thinks of us. I care about what you think of me when you see me walking down the street. I don't want you to fear me. I want you to acknowledge me and embrace me as somebody of worthy to be respected.
Yeah. And Carl, I think what happened, I love that you said shifting the narrative around Black. And we also understand that shifting that narrative also allows for us to also understand that Black, and Renee said it has so many forms, right? And we just haven't been able to share that and be able to do that. And so that right there is a place where I find, and I say I find, is where we are struggling, because we're getting all this, and we said this, we're getting all this Black content right now, right? It's everywhere. And so I said to Yolanda, do we know, is that going to happen in October? Is that going to happen in September? Or is it just because it's Black history, right? And so both, Renee and I have to be able to be on the brand side and say, hey, what's our Black history campaign? And they're like, oh, we haven't even thought about it, right? So now we're seeing it, but what is going to be that thing that we're going to carry after Black history, right? So making sure that happens. And so what I want to talk specifically to you, Carl, is, while you've been in business for 20 years, you shared 10 years ago that you went digital, 10 years ago. And so that was a big pivot. You were, truth be told, was an actual physical publication that you could get on the streets, right? It was on the streets. You could pick it up and get it, and you could read it. And so today it's digital. And so when you made that pivot 10 years ago and did that, what did that do for you as it relates to today? Because while some people literally were not on digital even last year, right? There's people in the world that were like, oh, yeah, I don't know that. I mean, and we see that with our restaurants. They never had digital platforms. So I do want to ask you about that.
Well, first of all, I was saddened that I had to shut down my physical publications. To this day, I still love the printed word.
Me too. I still need to touch stuff.
I subscribe to probably a dozen magazines, from home to business to sports, because I still love that physical piece.
Me too.
So I struggled to do that, to make that adjustment for the love of that game that I was presently in. But yet I understood when I discovered the Huffington Post is what prompted me to say, hey, and I delved into her story on how she started. And I was like, what? She did this.
Yes, Ariana Huffington. Love, that's one of my favorite. And she
She
don't know
did
that.
this little simple thing that she did netted her such incredible returns when down the road. And I said, well, of course, my philosophy is always, if she can do it, so can I.
Correct.
I live my life based on that. My question I tell my kids in schools that I speak as the why not me,
Right.
and I was like, oh well, shit, that what it is. I just hadn't found the model that I thought that was doable as I was making that transition. So I stumbled across her, and then also, of course, that led me to do more research of others in the digital space. Then I came across Bloomberg News, which just took me over the top. And so I just did
Can I
it.
just say something, Carl, that just for people that I love, that you looked at case studies that were not Black. That you went to mainstream media, that was Bloomberg and Ariana Huffington Post, to say, okay, if they can do it, so can I. And I just wanted to pause to just say that I think that that's important, that we can look outside of who we are to be able to help us pivot in that regard.
It's funny you said that, because the other day I started doing this thing called the Book of the Week, and the first book I highlighted was a non-Black book, and folks was like, "What's up with that during Black History Month?" I said, "Read the book and you'll figure out why I chose it." Right? It was a book that a white dude, wrote in the 1800 in the late early 1800s, and he created the word capitalism, and he actually created the framework in which capitalism was constructed in America. And so what he wrote was amazing. And I have to remember that I have to pull up on my phone just to share that book with you. But to your point, it wasn't a Black book that I profiled. I didn't even really think about it. I just thought about what I thought will give people the best practice of information to take their mind to another place. Because look on my shelf, I read autobiographies, right? People who have made it from here to there. And of course, the bulk of those books are white. Steve Case and Steve Jobs and Bloomberg, but also got Bob Johnson and Open. I got, and I got a host of them too. But to me, when I'm trying to find inspiration to take me to that next level, I don't care what color you are when you delivering the goods to me that allow me to educate and learn the process. But again, I decided to go digital. I did it. I went weekly. I realized I had so much time on my hand because it was so easy from putting together a printed publication. So I decided after a month to go daily. I say if the Sun Times, the Tribune, USA Today can have a daily digital, so can I. I just had to readjust my lifestyle completely that allowed me to be able to dive into the content and do it. And that was it. And I was ahead of the game in that regards, especially in Chicago. I mean, I'm not going to name them because it's not important, but there are people who have digital platforms today that I helped them do that. They called me and said, "Man, how you do that? Help me." And I did. And I had no fear of competition, because the way I stand, I don't believe in competition. I believe that there's enough, for everybody to find their own little niche and piece. Now, how much more you want is going to determine on your skill set, your hustle, your hunger, right? But sharing the pie, it's enough for everybody to get a piece of it. So I'm never concerned about competition in that regard. So that's how I went to digital. And 10 years later, I mean, it was the best decision I could have made. I wish I made it even 5 years earlier.
I love it.
It has been a wonderful business for me thus far. I cannot imagine. Even this past year when the pandemic hit, I was even sometimes ashamed to even say that my business had increased 25-30%.
And that's what Carl.
Because I knew folks who was having issues, and they was, a lot of my Black media colleagues was struggling, right? They was going to they was applying for grants to survive. And I was like, because my business model was solid.
Yeah.
And then I had been in the game for so long that people, when they were shifting money to COVID communications, I was the first person on the list. It was like, oh, go to Carl with TBT News. And I was getting all this COVID money. I was getting all the census money from the state, from the federal government, and from the city. And I was like, wow.
And that's why, again, crisis creates currency. So we got to recognize that. And so that's why I wanted to showcase this, is that there are Black businesses that were exploding through this crisis, and that story needed to be told. I'm now going to redirect to Renee, because Renee, you too had a digital platform as a blogger. And so you were in that space and then pivot into a filmmaker. And so at that very moment, I love to share like those pivotal moments. What did it take to get? You were already a digital creator, right? And so now you're just moving into, now what I say is adding a comma to your name, right? As a filmmaker. From that, but always being able to be on digital, online, and always being that voice where people could go to your blog and know what's the Black, business, what's the Black beauty, what's that top business. So, from that pivot from that digital content creator, and still that same way, but adding filmmaker to your list, to your title.
And so your question is it why, how, or what was the inspiration?
So how did you pivot from that space?
How? You know what? For me, it was really more of just wanting to expand the reach and wanting to have a new creative challenge for myself. I mean, the blog has existed now for 11 years. And in addition to the blog, I was hosting events here in New York to bring the blog to life. I did a photography exhibition with a friend. And after that photography exhibition, I was really inspired to think about like, what other mediums can I explore to tell these women's stories? Like it doesn't have to stop at, where I've already been. And so that's when the film kind of like manifested itself. But it's all storytelling, right? So blogging is storytelling, events is telling a story, and so is filmmaking, obviously. And for me, it has just felt very natural. I mean, of course, there was a lot to learn about filmmaking. I always say that filmmaking, the lessons that I got producing that film are life lessons. It's almost like I learned more about myself and life experiences than I did about filmmaking. And I had an amazing team to help me bring it to life. I was going to say Larvetta. Lord, it's Friday. My brain is fried. Rosanna McClendon is on here. She was my story producer. So I had some really amazing people around me to bring that vision to life, to help to make that pivot or that transition a lot less painful and seamless. And so even now, when we look at where we are in this space of, yes, productions are happening, but not on the same schedule. There's so many COVID regulations you have to consider. And so while I'm still, working on the next installment, I'm also like, wow, what medium can I explore now, within my home where I could connect with women around the world, low overhead costs. And so I'm going to be launching the She Did That podcast next month during Women's History Month. So it's just another platform to tell our stories, another way to reach people. The audio content world has increased dramatically because so many of us are in our homes alone. You want to have that, that energy, that companionship, the knowledge and wisdom, whatever you're tapping into audio content for. And so I want to be there for people who want to hear from these incredible Black women entrepreneurs in that space.
And I thank you for just telling us what's next, because that's important for us to know that in these pivots, we're creating what's next for us. The thing that I also wanted to add, Renee, is that the importance when you're pivoting is the importance of your tribe, right?
Yes.
Because when you take from, what once people see you as, and then it's like this, how important is that when you're pivoting from kind of, or in your minds, pivoting from one medium to the next?
Oh my God, it's so important. Like even with the podcast, you don't realize what is right around you until you like have to tap into it. So even with the podcast, like finding a producer was literally just reaching out to one person I know. He referred me to someone. Finding a graphic designer that specializes in those audio graphics. Like everything I need was accessible because of the people I have in my tribe. Same thing for the film. Yeah. We're like 1 degree of separation from the resources we need. That's why whenever I hear someone say like they want to do something, they don't know where to start, I'm like, start right around you. No matter who your social circle is, I am willing to bet that you are a one text or phone call away from someone who could help you bring your vision to life.
Yeah, agreed. And I would say everything you need is right in front of you. You just got to tap into it. And so you're absolutely right. And when you said it's that peace, be still. And the funny thing is, I used to come up with creative ideas in the car. Obviously, I'm not getting a car. So my new obsession was taking a shower in the bath. And so for that is where my creativity comes through.
Yeah, because we're not in front of a device. We're not, stimulated by all these other things. And for me, like, if I was out in the world doing everything that I was doing post or pre, 2020, I don't know if I would have, because the podcast has been on my mind for like 3 or 4 years, but I was so busy moving and, doing all these other things that I didn't stop to actually invest in that idea. So sometimes being still allows you to create things that need to be created that you may not have tapped into otherwise.
I agree. And I believe that God designed this kind of COVID for us to be still because of that. I'm going to pivot to Yolanda because I want to bring up your art show. I was at your art show right before COVID. It was like in October, right? It was September, October.
It was February. So this is like the 1 year anniversary. And I think you brought your niece. You brought your niece with you.
Yeah. And so because it was important for me, for her, so to your point, is to see Black narratives and art and like Black women, like she talks about all these amazing, and granted, everybody, she's like, do you know this person? I'm like, yeah, but you're going to meet Yolanda. You're going to meet an artist, I challenged her with that. So based on the art show, right? When you did that art show, you had, it was sold out. It was amazing. And so then COVID happens, right? And so, and then COVID happens. And, for those of us that listen in Chicago, we don't have a lot of Black art studios. Let's be real. Like we just don't have that. So you had it at a new art studio on Chicago's West Side. And so from that standpoint, where do you see art curation happening in the future based on, just where we are today?
Yeah, that's something that I had to think about so much last year during the pandemic. And I have to kind of highlight that was nothing but God, because no lie, this is like literally the 1 year anniversary. We had the event the 22nd of February, maybe a week or two after the state shut down. So that was, I'm not gonna lie, it changed my life. It was one of the best experiences I've had, just because it wasn't just about me, it was about other collaborators, other artists. And I think there's something powerful to say about the importance of art being healing, but everything was intentional. It was an economic development driver. We were on the West Side, we were in Garfield Park, shout out to 345 Art Gallery and the work that Corey Williams is doing there. It was all intentional, because what my goal to do was to bring Chicagoans and anybody else who was interested to the West Side of all walks, like just everybody, North Side, South Side, downtown, wherever you're from. I need you to see beauty on the West Side. And I think it was just telling to show exposure to that area, but how art was so important to heal. People were definitely impacted by just the experiences that were there. So that was important. And then COVID happened. And I had guilt about that, because I do think about the fact that, that the reality was that people could have been impacted in that way. So it's a weird, nuanced feeling. But I think what was interesting, I had 3 other shows to do after that. It goes back to what was being said about how it doesn't end there. Like, we are intentional. We want to keep progressing and going forward. And so I was blessed to work or be a part of 3 other shows. 2 of them got canceled. And I was okay with that because I think at that time, again, peace, be still, figure out your life. Let's try to be intentional. But I think what I saw, which was powerful, was more content being created by artists, fellow artists. So the beauty in that is that what you're seeing with these exhibits, I mean, step 1, they're becoming more virtual, but that means more people are creating art. So I was really happy to see that. I saw more artists and people just in the field of, art creating more because they had to be still.
Yeah.
Some people were able to just say, you know what, this is tough for me. I think there was a certain point where economically it was very tough. And you saw the city and other, organizations and the state really trying to say, we need to pour resources into the arts because people are struggling right now. But I think what was telling is that you had to be creative. Again, you had to persevere. So I saw, Jeff Beckham, for example, he was part of the art exhibit. That man was creating content every week. I was like, what are you doing? He was just still. He was able to be in his room, create, and he was just spitting out there. So I don't know, it's powerful to see how people are creating that. These art exhibits have become not only virtual, but I want to give another shout out to the importance of brick and mortar. Another thing that I saw is you saw, once the city was able to open up a little bit, we were doing a little bit better to go to phase 2 and 3. You saw businesses opening up, but you also saw coffee shops, specific retail, opening the door for artists to show their art. So shout out to Phil's Coffee. Shout out to so many of these different organizations. Phil's Coffee in Hyde Park, they were doing this promotion. As soon as they opened, they said, we want to ensure that artists can show their work. Nice. They reached out to me for 2 different occasions. They reached out to Black artists. They reached out to the community. We want to curate and make sure that your art is being seen because people are coming in and out. You're seeing with the Silver Room as well. You're seeing the fact that these stores are open. Those are the art exhibits. So again, just thinking differently about maybe it's not your typical, I'm going to go in, it's kind of loud and crowded, I'm going to walk each area. You got to be innovative. And so shout out to those different storefronts who have been able to say, we can't necessarily have an art exhibit per se, or it's going to be digital, but we can be intentional to have that experience and that feeling because again, art is healing, art provokes something. And I think getting coffee, people are doing that every day. And so to be able to see that content at a coffee shop or in a specific storefront was really important. So I see those exhibits happening, but I also see as we're opening up more, the importance of how we're utilizing space. And so people are using their spaces differently to curate that art. So those are some examples I'm seeing.
Oh, that's awesome.
The exhibits are there.
And where the future holds is so incredible and I love it. True story. To your point, in the pandemic, I bought 2 pieces of work by Black artists. So to your point, and I created my own art piece, outdoor art piece, just for healing. So to your point, I was doing that just so that for me, it was a healing exercise for me. So you're right. It's like it really came to fruition during the pandemic. And to Renee's point, peace be still, I probably would have been doing that, right? I would have been how to paint something. So I think that is certainly important. And I think artists who are visual artists and building, this is the time to be able to do it and be very innovative. So thank you for sharing that. I hate to say this, guys, but we're almost wrapping up. It just goes so fast and I can't stand it because I get to the table and I'm like, oh, we got so much to talk about. And then we just go so fast. But when you have amazing, dope friends, that's just what happens, right? So that's what happens. So, but I know for Renee, you've definitely shared what's next for you for that. I do want to say that in our final words, because you did share what's next, I do believe that, life is about what we do in this dash, right? And so as content creator, what do you hope your content will create for years to come? So this is, your moment. And then of course, what you have going on, you've already said that, but really share what and during that dash, what do you hope your content will create in the years to come?
Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. So my desire and intentions behind my work and the legacy I want to build, I think is really simple. I want more brown girls to see what's possible. I want them to look at the work that I'm doing with She Did That, for example, and be like, if she did that, I can do it too. Because as we know, representation is so powerful. And as a result of more brown girls feeling empowered to kind of create the life they want, as opposed to just taking what's handed to them, it is going to impact our entire community. So the work that I'm doing is really about instilling the importance of owning, our lives, owning our legacies, owning our brands, creating wealth, and just taking our power back, because that economic power and freedom is what's really going to push our community forward. And it starts with women. It starts with the nurturers in our community.
Yes. And it's amazing that you say that, because the reason why we get to record this video, because I feel like when life is, we can take that snippet and say, yep, this is what she said in 2021, and she has done that, right? And so making sure that we have content to show that, no, this is what she was doing as a brown girl and leading. So you know how they do us. We can't find anything. Like we looked and we searched the internet. Okay, we got one for you. So making sure that happened. We've done this a few times. People say, oh, you're recording this, so this is perfect. So we have this as proof, right? So for you, Carl, I'm asking you, life is about what you do in that dash. And as a content creator, as a visionary for what you're doing in Chicago, what do you hope your content will create for years to come? The things that you have published, the things that you're looking to publish in the near future, what you hope your content will create for years to come?
Well, I always, when I have conversations with people in certain industries, Black people primarily that I know, and especially if they happen to be in charge at the head of the table, making decisions about other people's lives, possibly, I always tell them to think about, how do you want to be remembered? What legacy, what monument do you want to build to your name? And so I think about that quite often. I think about what will, and to me, it's not necessarily a physical monument. That can be all as well, but it's really 10 years after you've doing what you've done throughout your professional and personal journey, for that matter. 10 years afterwards, if you happen to be if a crowd of people was gathering and your name was mentioned, what do they say about you? Do they say, oh, that guy, man, he was the business, right? He really stood up. He really believed in this and fought for this, and the words that he scripted, his works of words really meant something, and they empowered us to think about things, not to necessarily demand of us or tell us, but just gave us food for thought to think about. And so if you want to improve your own life, those words mean something. And the two things that I want those words to mean is, and Renee said it best, which is always my theme, is how do we wealth building? How do we think about how do we build wealth? And also, how do we erect beautiful, happy, progressive communities where we can basically just skip down the street, right? And just everybody is in love with everybody. The sight of Black people, as I talked about before. You walk down these streets and you skip and you just love Black. I want my words to incite that kind of emotion. And if need be, again, be that call to action. So that's what I would like to have a monument to my name represent. And let me say this before I get off, and I want to thank the other two young ladies for being inspirations as well and accomplished individuals. Larvetta, I just spent 10 days in Savannah, Georgia. You know
So
what I'm talking
are you really considering it, like for real, for real? Are you
No,
really?
no, no. The move is already in my head. It's just about a physical move now. I spent 10 days down there scouting out places. That's because I know you and I talked about that in length. So I just came back when y'all was covered in snow. I was in Savannah.
So we need to know that part of his legacy is he's chilling in Savannah. So that's part of his legacy, that he's gonna be in Savannah. And I
I'm
hear you.
gonna be in Savannah.
And so
Still
that's
being
part
still
of the
being
world
impactful.
building. Huh?
Yeah, still being impactful.
Yeah.
But I just need to. For me, it's about finding another place where I can rest my weary bones and my brains from 20 years of grinding.
Yeah.
And I just want to go somewhere and have a sense of peace and quiet, so I can retool and think about the next phase of my life.
And isn't that the beauty of being digital content creators? Because you can live anywhere and still produce and make an impact. So that's the beauty of it. Yolanda, I want to talk to you. Life is about what you do in that dash. And so I'm asking you, what do you hope your content will create for years to come as a photographer?
Ooh, I'll be quick because I know we got like 4 minutes. I think it kind of goes back to the title of my name. I was saying earlier that the name Imagery by Chioma, the idea is to bring light and energy, like a positive experience. I think it goes deeper than that. I tell people all the time, most people that I photograph don't like their picture taken. There's this kind of image bearing that you capture. I think photographers have a very important role to capture something. There's something very spiritual in some sense that you kind of have when you're capturing that moment. But I think that connects to the Black experience too. I want us to be able to see ourselves as valuable. One thing that has been sticking for me for a very long time, this was almost all of 2020, was worthiness. Are we worthy? We are. Do we see it though? Like, what are we seeing within ourselves? And so when I think about my photography, it's not just about taking a picture. I'm really big at, if anyone has worked with me, I'm like, shift your head, do this, do that. And I also ask people to participate in the moment because I see something that's powerful and beautiful in your posture, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself to other people. Do you see yourself? And it's almost like an intimacy, like into me see. But I want us to see ourselves as valuable and love each other. And I think it's so important for us to love ourselves, but to see ourselves because we are worthy. We're made in God's image. All of that matters, and it manifests in how we do everything. If we see ourselves in that way as powerful beings, we don't have a choice but to be great in our businesses, in our families, right? In our family structures, with our neighbors, all of that, in our communities. And so I take it seriously to say, do we see ourselves as worthy? And so I hope that my photography can speak to that lens through storytelling, through art exhibits, but then also in a way that we can see ourselves differently, to know that we are worthy, we are talented, we are amazing people. And that's kind of the legacy I hope to see within the photography aspect of it.
And I hope to continue to see that. I have been fortunate to have you photograph me. So I have experienced that.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you all for spending your Friday with us at the Roundtable. It has been fun to be here and amongst some amazing Black content creators who I can call on as friends, because really I do have to call y'all. You available Friday? Are you available Friday? So I did have to do that. So that's a real thing. They call and ask for you all to be here, but more importantly, you said yes, and that means the world to me that you said yes to me, to be here and to be able to share. So I always say this: thank you for giving your time with me and to the audience as we continue to have this conversation around crisis and around currency. And what I love that was shared here was that our businesses are growing, and that in this crisis, we are pivoting, and that our stories are being told about how we're pivoting and how our businesses are exploding. However, we see that, right? Exploding looks different for everybody. It can explode with cash, it can explode with relationships, it can explode
Mhm.
with, you know what I mean? A number of access to things. And I realize that when we use the word explode, people are like, wait. I'm not over here. I mean, I'm not rich. I decided you don't have to be, right? But you can be rich in that space of love. So I thank you guys for being here with me on this Friday. And so what I will say to all of you all, continue to be great, continue to be excellent, and know that you are worthy. You said that. Know
Mhm.
you are worthy to be here. And so your story has to be told too. I think we are out here being storytellers, but the world also needs to hear you all's stories too. So make
Mhm.
sure that your stories are being told as you continue to shape other stories. So thank you all. For those that listen,
Thank you, Larvetta.
Thank you, Larvetta.
Thank
Thank
you.
It
you.
was nice meeting everyone.
Okay, Renee.
Likewise. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Carl.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.
Yes.
guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another installment of Crisis Currency Roundtable. We hope to see you again in 2 weeks. Again, subscribe to the channel so that you can continue to see episodes. You can see more episodes at our website. But again, we thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks as we celebrate Women's History Month.